The Secrets of Technology is brought to you by the StarQuest Production Network and is made possible by our many generous patrons. If you'd like to support the podcast, please visit sqpn.com/give. You're listening to The Secrets of Technology. Hi, I'm Dom Bettinelli, and you're listening to The Secrets of Technology, where we discuss the technology news that's important to you from a uniquely Catholic point of view. And joining me today on the panel are Thomas Sanherho. Hi, Thomas.
Hi, Dom. How's it going?
Very well, thank you. And Jack Barazzini. Hi, Jack.
Hey, how's it going?
Very well, thank you. So we have a couple good topics this week. Some stuff really about. I think the theme this week is making sure that our tech protects us from nefarious things, from bad things. I think that's really the theme this week. And the first segment, the first story I want to talk about is a story that's been in the news here in the Boston area, and it's been in the Boston Globe. One of the Globe's reporters a few years ago lost his wife. She died tragically of a really bad asthma attack, and she died like on a bench outside the emergency room of a local hospital, one of the cities next to Boston. And she had called 911 and they couldn't find her and no one saw her and she passed away right there. It was a tragedy, like by definition, because it didn't need to happen. And so one of the things that was a result was they found that the 911 call, which she made from her cell phone, could not pinpoint her location well enough that they couldn't find her. She was on a bench outside the emergency room door, and they're 3 blocks away down the hill from the hospital looking for her. It just was terrible. And so this follow-up they did recently in the last couple weeks was they did a test. Okay, so now that we've been known about this for this time, how does the system work? And so this reporter went with the deputy chief of police for this town, and they stood in the same location, and they made a bunch of 911 cell phone calls, and they got some really kind of disturbing results where most of them one of them couldn't find him at all. Several of them placed them in the wrong location, the wrong places. They used different national carriers, different phones, and the question is why can my Uber and Lyft find me, and drive up right next to me on the curb, and 911 can't? And that's really the big question. So, guys, I mean, what do you think of this in general? I mean, was this something you'd thought about or something that concerned you about 911 before? Or did you just kind of assume, well, 911 has location stuff in it now, so they must be able to find me? Was this something you were aware of before? How about you, Thomas?
This is actually something that I've thought a lot about because I'm on a non-main brand carrier. I'm a Metro PCS customer. So I bounce off of a lot of different cell phone towers when I'm when I'm making calls. So this is one of the things that I did think about a lot when I first got when I first got my cell phone and I started thinking about using it as an emergency system. Bouncing off of all those different towers and the amount that I switch around, I wonder what that would do to my location signal. And it's bitten me a few times just with the maps programs where I'll be about 1,000 feet off the side of the road, and we're talking on Google Maps. So it's, I know the map program is good. I know that the location is good, but the information that's coming from my phone isn't. And so I have been a little bit worried about this, honestly.
How about you, Jack? Was this a concern? What's it like in your area? I mean, do you live rural or suburban or urban? What kind of area you live in?
I live in a fairly suburban area, and the 2 times that I've had to make 911 calls, they both had to do with car wrecks, and I just made sure, I honestly didn't even think of it. I just told them what street I was on, what the cross street was, and There were no issues. But I don't know how accurate they would have been able to pinpoint it at. I do know that when I use Google Maps, it gets it extremely accurately where I live. I'm able to turn on the walking feature, and it tells me exactly where I am. So I think that around here, it may not be too much of an issue, but looking through the article, it looks like a lot of it has to do with organization and like the legacy software they're using more so than the inability for it to actually work.
Right. It's not so much about whether the GPS in the phone knows where it is, but how that information is routed around in the tower. So I think what they're doing is triangulating. So triangulation measures your the amount of time that a signal takes to travel between you and the radio tower, and if you have 3 towers, that gives you 3 points that 3 lines that cross, and that gives you a pinpoint. And if you have, I think it's like 4, you can have height or something like that, whatever it is. But they need the towers to triangulate and pinpoint you. But especially in areas like, so in the Boston area, we have a lot of cities and towns that are close together and weird shapes, and parts of towns jut into other ones. And so what you have is it can be hard for these towers to really pinpoint which jurisdiction you're in, but then they have these regional centers as well. I was reading this other story about this Tennessee system where this one county, it says Wilson County, for example, there was this car accident. There was a TV news reporter who saw it and called, and it was just a mess. And they said that the county gets the call, and then the 911 county call center then has to route your call, transfer you, because we know how reliable transferring calls is, to the local agency that's significant. And so it's time. There's just the more time it takes to route you. And they say every single phone call in Wilson County must be transferred. There are no exceptions. And so you're repeating yourself. You're trying to, and it burns up the time that during an emergency, every second counts. So whether it's urban like Boston, or suburban, or rural like in Wilson County, Tennessee, I think you're right, Jack. It's as much a bureaucratic or organizational or institutional problem as it is a technological problem.
And I've actually worked in Tennessee with law enforcement systems, with their IT systems, and honestly, that doesn't surprise me.
Right. Yeah, I mean, as much money as we've poured into Homeland Security, and I'm doing the air quotes, Homeland Security funding, there's still a lot of stuff that just needs to catch up, that needs to be improved.
Right.
It's really frustrating to think that we're so advanced. Like I said, I can call an Uber. I can pick up my phone and look at where my mom is right this very second. But this sort of stuff, which you think is even more fundamental, more important, is so far behind.
Right. They just don't have the money to upgrade a lot of the time.
Well,
Right.
and the incentive, I think, is the real. It's difficult because what are they going to say? Well, we need the people to tell us their location whenever they can. And so this system has worked before without location or without this GPS system, whereas Uber wouldn't work without a GPS locator. And so there's a lot of a lack of incentive to really improve the system the way it needs to be improved.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So one of the things they said in this when they were testing it was, so in the 8 test calls they made, the operators placed them in a scattershot of locations, some that were really accurate, others down the street or even thousands of feet away. One operator had no information at all. But within a minute or two, they got better information. They got a better fix on the position, sometimes within 100 feet of the bench. So with time, they can make it better, but it's those crucial first moments. Thomas, you said something about like the GPS information. The thing that's crazy is that they can't right now pull the GPS location data from your call. They can't get that. Your phone knows where it is pretty accurately, but it's not sending that information. Now, some would say, well, maybe we don't want it that easy for the government to pull our location data from a cell phone call. Thomas is raising his hand.
My hand shut up immediately.
I mean, so we're balancing security and liberty here.
Right.
What do you say about that?
I honestly would rather them not know where I am. I do like the idea that they have to triangulate from devices. There's a record of that going on their end. It is intensive. It's intensive enough that it does cost them some amount of resource to do. I like all of these things. I think that they are. You have to weigh that against the ability to just grab the GPS location from whomever wants it. The other option here is we could make a 911 app that someone, especially someone who has medical needs, that they have access to that, just like we did the old the bracelets, you know, the bracelets, the emergency medical thing that you could wear. Same kind of thing for your phone. This should definitely be something that they should be looking into. If they're not, I haven't seen anything like it, and I did a quick search for it and didn't find anything for it. So I don't know.
CBS had a TV series a couple years ago that was based on a real life situation where a corporation, like a tech corporation, took over the police department, running the police department for a major area of a big city like New York or Chicago. I think it was Chicago. And one of the things they implemented was this 911 or this emergency app that people could use to report crime, report problems, report things, and it would provide more data because you offered it, you know, because you're entering it in, and so somebody's been thinking about it, and I think it was based on a real case in New Orleans, but I don't think they had an app like that there, but they might have. They might have. I don't recall it clearly. But I see what you're saying. I mean, it would be really good. It would be really easy to catch a lot more criminals if cops didn't need warrants to go search houses.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm. We could catch a lot of criminals that way. On the other hand, I really prefer that police have to have probable cause and a judge's sign off and a warrant before they can come into my house. Even though I'm not doing anything, I still would rather than not be able to do that.
Right.
And I think it might be something similar.
Yeah. And I could see the app. I mean, the app is something that you have on your phone that you've given permission, and you can, if you would like to opt out of it, you can turn it off. You can limit it in some way. I don't know. I think it's an elegant solution to a difficult problem.
Yeah, I agree. I think of course what we need is a somebody big enough to come along and say we're going to implement this, and whether it's a government entity, but maybe it will be one of the tech companies. Maybe it'll be an Apple or a Google incorporating into their operating systems.
Yeah, I think the biggest hurdle to overcome would be having each jurisdiction sign off on that and agree to use that protocol, because that's going to be the bottleneck.
Right.
Yeah, that's true.
Right. Your local departments would have to sign off on it. I mean, there are ways to. I mean, they already do things like that. There are political and organizational ways to implement it. But the tech is there. Unlike what so often when politicians want to change tech, they say, "Well, those geniuses will figure it out." Well,
right.
Yeah, this is a case.
This might be an area where they could do it.
Yeah, this is actually an area. So what can we do now, though? So one of the things is there's a group called the National Emergency Number Association. It's a nonprofit group that advocates for better 911. And they're saying in as little as a year, every national cell phone carrier will be incorporating iPhone and Android smartphone GPS information into the caller information they provide to 911. So, Thomas, this is your scenario that you don't want. So we should know this ahead of time, that this is probably going to be happening. But what do we do in the meantime? What is the one of the things that they suggest is, as soon as you call, if you are able to, and this is the key, if you're able to, give your location, like you did, Jack. And this is something we did when I was a kid because we didn't have GPS location data. You call, you pick up the phone and call, where are you? And you tell them. Unfortunately, the reporter in this story, his wife was, because of her asthma attack, she could only talk at the very beginning of the call, and then because there was a breathing issue, couldn't talk by the end of it, and so that's why they ended up not being able to get the location from her. But whenever you call 911, you drill it into your head, your kids' heads, everyone you know, the first thing you do is say, I have an emergency, I am at, and then you give your location the best you can, whether it's an address or a cross street or something. First thing you do, and that above all. So, what else do you think? I mean, that people can do to make 911 work better for them?
Call your representative. That can help.
Yeah. Your local and state governments, especially, advocate for better systems.
Well, and on a personal level, make sure people know where you are, and follow up your 911 call if you can with a call to someone who knows, because they can make a call to 911 as well.
Right.
And as long as they know where you are, they can get somebody there for you.
You know, that's one of the things with the new Apple Watches. Well, I don't have a new one, but the new ones, they have a medical like SOS on it. So even if you can't talk, if you hold down the second button, not the crown, but the other button, if you hold it down, it pops up and says, "Is this an emergency?" And you can, swipe it and say, yeah, it's, SOS, and it will send an emergency call to both 911, but also a message to a designated emergency contact, and they will have your location. And I think that's a good system too, is to be able to, is like you said, to make sure someone knows where you are. Try to get as much of that information out as you can, because if you don't necessarily want to give it to the government a priori, maybe someone in your family is trustworthy enough. So that's a good. Those are good ones. So bears watching, and of course, there's always the success stories, the good stories of when there was a rescue recently. There was a young woman who was missing, and her mom found her car had gone off the side of a road, and she found it with Find My Friends. I came up with this other story. I just Googled randomly, and I came up with a story of this woman who had a leg injury while hiking in Maryland in the Greenridge State Forest, and was rescued after 911 dispatches tracked her down using the cell phone technology. So we're better off than we used to be. 30 years ago, if you fell in the middle of the forest with a hiking injury, you're done.
Yeah.
There's no way to call for help.
You just got to hope that you got to blow your whistle and hope somebody finds you.
Exactly. Yeah. But also,
but
yeah,
we can use that. We can use the technology we have to do that same kind of thing. Where if you have like this, like if there were a more generalized app, like Find My Friends, where you could just connect by Bluetooth, as somebody else is hiking along and they have their phone out, and it just sends a ping to their phone, "Hey, emergency! There's someone nearby that is dealing with a distress," because they opened this app. That would be a great thing to have, especially like an AT hiker or something like that.
Yeah, like a hiker outdoorsman app where you volunteer to receive sort of messages from nearby people. I mean, they use this technology for stupid, like hooking up at bars things.
Right.
Let's use it to save
Let's
some
use it
lives.
for something. Yeah, for something real. Okay, so now we got two apps that we got to design now. So Jack, we got to get on this, man.
Yeah,
this is our get rich scheme.
Yeah,
right?
there you go.
Yeah, we're starting a startup right on this podcast. We're gonna start a new company. We need some angel investors in this. That's for sure. All right. So before we come up with any more apps and give them away for free on our podcast, let's move on to our second topic tonight, which is like I said, it's also something about just keeping yourself safe and tracking and things like that. But this one is about browser tracking, and it came about as there was a column in the Washington Post by their tech reporter, and his name is Jeffrey Fowler. And he has a great little video on the site. Now, of course, I'll have the link in the show notes that explains how Google's Chrome cookies track you. So a cookie. Can someone explain to me exactly what we're talking about when we talk about cookies, Thomas?
Sure, I'll go for it. A cookie is basically just a piece of code. Whenever you go to a website, you're downloading code onto your computer. So you're downloading some amount of resource from the computer. It might just be an HTML page. It might be some picture links. But more and more lately, it's getting to be these cookies that are tracking you around the internet. And it sounds incredibly nefarious, but you use it all the time when you do things like save your password for logging into Facebook, or when you save information for logging into Amazon. Really just visiting a website, you're going to download some form of cookie that allows you, when you go back, to get the website faster, because they want to make it run as quickly as possible. So they're going to try and save whatever state you were in and keep it running. The problem is that those things stay on your machine. They don't necessarily get deleted when you leave, either when you leave that particular time from that website or when you leave the browser. Sometimes they will persist past just being logged into the browser on any given time.
And there's also the difference between cookies that say Amazon, for example, sets, it says you're logged in and this is your Amazon information, and Then there are third-party cookies, and these are data trackers that belong to ad networks or people who make money aggregating data about people's behavior, so a behavior analysis and all these other things. And that is where I think, so a cookie in itself can be good and useful, but when we start talking about third-party cookies, I think that's where we're really getting into something a little more concerning.
Yeah, because it's basically just harvesting all your data. That's why, like, I'll look at a guitar on Musician's Friend, and then 2 weeks later, because I don't ever clear my cookies out because honestly I'm lazy, I go to Facebook and that stuff pops up in the side. Like, it just follows you around, and they're harvesting everything that you're looking at and basically building a profile of you.
Right. This is why sometimes people think that their smart assistant is listening to them when they, oh, my husband and I were just talking about a thing, and then later on Facebook, I saw an ad for that very same thing. It may not. Maybe your smart assistant is listening to you, but more than likely, Occam's razor says no. It's because your behavior online is related to whatever you're talking about. You went to a website, you read an article, and that data, that information was harvested, aggregated, filed, folded, spindled, and mutilated, and turned into an ad to be placed in your Facebook page. So that's the problem we're talking about. And so one of the issues related to that is that Jeffrey Fowler came up with is he looked at Chrome, Google Chrome web browser. And one of the things that we have to realize is that Google it's not in the Gmail business, not in the search business, it's not in the web browser business, it's in the ad business. And you're not Google's customer. Google's customer we are the product, just like when we watch TV, back in the old days, over the air TV on NBC, ABC, CBS, we were not the customer, we were the product being sold. And so Google's advertisers are the customer. And so their vested interest is to provide more and more data about what we're doing to the advertisers and to their ad networks. In fact, many of these trackers are owned by Google. DoubleClick Ad Network and all these others are trackers owned by Google. So one of the things that Fowler says is, in a week of web surfing on my desktop, I discovered 11,189 requests for tracker cookies that Chrome would have ushered right into my computer, but were automatically blocked by Firefox. And so he's talking about how Firefox is not in the data business. Their business is not about packaging your data and selling ads. They make their money off of, well, when you search on Google, and they earn money off of search, and they're a nonprofit. But nevertheless, they're not into making money off of your data. So, well, what do? Do we give up Chrome? Should we trash Chrome for Firefox? Are there other choices? Are you guys worried about this? Do cookies worry you? To mention, I mean, Jack, you kind of mentioned that you know they're there and you don't really clean them out. Is it worry you that you're being tracked?
It bothers me, but honestly, it can get to the point where you just kind of, it's probably, the frog in the boiling water, but you just get so used to it that it's hard to get too worried about it. And also just the convenience factor. And I think that's where they're getting a lot of people is because it's easy just to open up Chrome and have everything pop right up how I have it and how I want it instead of spending 5 minutes logging into every page. But I did not realize the extent of how much they were tracking you. So I am actually looking at switching either to Firefox or to Opera, because Opera actually has a free VPN built into it.
Brave kind of does the same thing too. So
yeah.
You can do the same thing with Brave. I am worried about this. This is something that concerns me. So for a long time, I had ad blockers on my systems. I used Ghostery just to figure out what I was seeing. So Ghostery is an addition that you can add to Firefox, and an extension that you can add to Firefox or to Brave. And then there's also there was an ad blocker that was great for a long while, but it blocked ads. And so every time you went to a website that had ads, it would recognize that and it would keep you from continuing into the website, because that's the way a lot of websites make their money, is by ads being present and being able to be clicked. So I don't use either of those anymore. I use a program called Ad Nauseam. So it's ADNAU, however you spell nauseum. I can't. I'm gonna let Dom put that in the notes. But it's a fantastic program because it takes the best of that concept and it finds the ads on the page and then it clicks them for you. And basically just runs a script in the background and just clicks the ads on the page as they come up, so that you're not missing the ads. You're not preventing websites that you go to from getting the response that they need from the ads, but you're not seeing them and they're not dropping cookies on your system at the same time.
Right. That's the thing is we're balancing, we're getting in general, often we're getting websites for free. We're used to looking at web pages and getting their content for free. And the deal was we had to look at some ads to watch them. The problem became when these ads became overwhelming. They were, the infamous pop under era of ads. You don't see that much anymore. They learn those, or the pop ups, the ones on top, which you get those for subscription lists now, but not so much for ads as much. But there was this arms race of ads and ads everywhere, and your browsing experience slows down because you have to suck all that down the pipe into your web browser every time you go to a page. And so people started responding like, if you're going to overwhelm me with this stuff, I'm going to start to block some of it. And it's become this back and forth. We want people who run sites and do these things to be able to stay in business and pay their bills and pay the employees. That's an important thing. But we also want to be not overwhelmed by stuff that and have a decent experience on the web. So we've got to balance that. And maybe sometimes we need to pay for things if they offer us a subscription, or maybe we don't use the thing if it becomes a hassle. But you're right, like this idea of the overwhelmingness. One of the worst offenders I've found with trackers and other gewgaws and bits and bobs that are the local TV news stations.
Oh gosh, yeah.
So
Absolutely.
when I had Ghostery running, they changed the browser extension. I don't use it anymore. But when I used to have it running, I'd go to like my local TV news station, and it would be like 50. The page would be filled with notifications of trackers that it was blocking, and I'm thinking, why are you doing this?
Most of it's just not knowing. And that's the thing that I would say for those of you who are tech savvy enough, or those of you who do have a presence on the web, be careful who you're partnering with, because the ad companies that are really above the board, they'll tell you what they're doing and what they're not doing. And the ones that won't, they'll give you a little bit better return, but they are farming your customers for information. And it's something that you need to be mindful of if you're a person that's entering into a deal with one of these ad agencies.
And they'll sour your relationship with your customer.
Right, because people end up just not going to that page.
Let's talk about some things people can do to protect themselves from trackers and protect their privacy. So one of the things we kind of mentioned already was change your web browser. So back in the day it was get rid of Microsoft Internet Explorer because, it's terrible. Go to Chrome. Chrome's the new thing. But maybe not so much anymore. So other ones that are better, Safari can be better. Apple has made noise that, for if you're on a Mac, that if you use their web browser, they don't allow certain activities. And so, but they're still a giant tech company, and you still got to kind of trust them with that. Okay, so Safari.
I would say on the same string there, Edge from Microsoft,
yes,
is actually really good. It's actually a very secure browser. I've done a lot of work with it, and it really is. It's a good solution to this problem too.
Yes, as someone who used to have to build websites that worked in web browsers and Internet Explorer 6, I'm just very sour on anything from Microsoft.
I just
in a
can't
web
bring
browser.
myself to recommend a Microsoft browser.
But I'm sure it is. But a lot of things about Microsoft are better than it used to be. Okay, so then Firefox, as mentioned in the article, Firefox is a very good web browser. It's been around for ages. And if you read the article that I'll put the link in, it talks about why Firefox is more secure. We've talked about Brave before. I'm still using Brave. It actually, one of the things that I like about Brave is there's this ability to turn it on and off, and to then kind of adjust the blocking, because sometimes you get to a site and it's like, I don't know what you're doing, but I'm not letting you in. And you just kind of change a few things here and there, and you're like, and it lets you through once you've satisfied its conditions. Like it doesn't see that anymore. So it's I like it because of that. There's that ability, but it's also built on the same engine that Chrome is. So if you need to use Hangouts or Gmail or any of those things, it still works just like Chrome would. And then you mentioned Opera. That's another option. Also been around for ages. It's a smaller base, but they have a VPN, and we've talked about VPNs before. But how does a VPN help us here with the trackers?
And basically, it can obfuscate your location so they cannot track you by IP address.
Okay, that is a good one. Yes. How often I get things like, "Oh, check out the arrest record for these people in your town of," and like Randolph is the town next to mine, but that's where my IP address is listed as. So I always know when a site is doing silliness like that.
I would also recommend people look at their browser on their phone, because a lot of people are forgetting that you can download these browsers on your phone. I know Brave is accessible from the Android platform, so you can download Brave and use Brave as your phone browser as well.
And you can use Brave on iOS as well, but there's a fundamental thing. The on iOS, it's always WebKit underneath. It's always basic Safari, and then something on top of it. So what Brave does is put its security layer on top of the browser that's built into iOS. So not as good as if you would just straight Brave, like on Android, but better than say using Chrome on iOS, which,
right.
you're using Safari and letting Google see everything. It's like the worst of both worlds. So don't do that. So that was a good point. Also, speaking of browsers, be careful about what browser extensions you install in your browser. If you give up, I had a friend who mentioned that they were trying to visit a website. It was like a news website or some type of blog site or whatever. And in order to read their content, they required you to install a browser extension. And I'm thinking, no, run away.
Yeah, no, absolutely
Never
not.
go back to that site. Yeah, that is because what happens when you install a browser extension? You're basically opening everything up to them, right?
That's like a really, really fancy cookie. That's next level cookie right there.
I mean,
It's like one of those icing cookies.
Yes, I mean, because basically a browser can see a browser extension, if written correctly, can see everything you're doing on your browser. Like it's the keys to the kingdom. So be careful with browser extensions you install. Make sure they're from a reputable source, that sort of thing. So, and in fact, when you install browser extensions in Brave, it will sometimes say, "We've checked this, and this is a good one." And there are ones that they'll say, "We haven't checked this," but you might know that it's still good, like because it's from a major vendor or something like that, and so you could do that. We mentioned blocking ads and third-party cookies. You mentioned ad nauseum. What about AdBlock Plus? That used to be the gold standard, but I've been hearing some weird things about them lately, that maybe they're actually working with these third-party cookie people now. What's going on with that? Do you know?
Yeah, I heard that they had, and this is all, I don't know that I've verified it enough to trust it, but I had stopped using them before this anyway. And it was mostly because of they would prevent me from going to sites, and then I'd have to turn them off and whatever. But apparently what they were doing is they were taking bids from some of these companies to allow their ads through the ad block. So you would go to a website and it wouldn't block the ads because that particular company had paid them to allow the ads to still show, which I wouldn't be surprised about, because it was annoying as all get out trying to use ad blocker while you were driving around the web anyway.
Right. I do remember noticing, like, and that might have been one of the reasons I stopped using it, was because ads were getting through. I'm like, well, what's the point of an ad blocker if it just lets ads through? So
right.
Yeah, it's gotten worse and worse over the years.
That's too bad. It's too bad. That's another sign. Keep up with things. Like if it, just because a tool worked in the past doesn't mean it's still trustworthy and useful now.
I would say every month, try and go through your extensions and look at what you have installed. And if you don't recognize it, get rid of it. Because as soon as it's useful again, the website's gonna remind you that you need it.
Right. And yeah, if you're not using it, get rid of it too.
Right,
if you're not actively using it on a regular basis. And then one of the things I mentioned is, you know how when you go to a website and it says, oh, you can sign up You can enter in a password like that you have to figure out and keep track of in your email address, or you could just sign in with your Facebook account or your Google account. Don't do that.
Yes, don't do that.
Get a password manager and use good, strong, unique passwords.
Yeah. And if just so everybody knows, that's like that's the ultimate cookie kind of thing. What you've done is you've told this other company that you use this website, and now they can track back and forth between those two things. And it actually allows them to communicate with each other. And I'm really surprised we haven't moved on to an era where that is considered just unsafe practice generally.
Yeah, one of the things that Apple mentioned at WWDC a few weeks ago is this fall in their new operating systems, they're going to implement their own version of this, and they said this system does not give information to the third party that you're using it with unless you explicitly say so. So the email address that it uses to sign to as your unique sign in is a random alias with like the 25-letter email address, random address, and so you control whether, and although you may want to have to give them more information, but that's up to you. But if for them to communicate with you, they email that random address and then it forwards it to your real address that Apple has that connection. Again, if you trust Apple to be the privacy company that they say they are, but still it's better than letting Facebook and Google do it. Not as good as just signing up with a random email or password. All right. So any other tips? Anything else we should tell people?
Also, just watch out for what permissions any app you install on your phone is asking for, because those can be tracking you.
Yes, definitely. Especially if you give permissions to connect to your social media. Like this is separate from signing in, to an account using your Facebook account. But sometimes they want to like connect your Facebook account and we'll give you something in this game, or you'll be able to connect with your friends. When you do that, you're sometimes giving up a lot more information. Especially like the worst one is when they anything that wants to find your friends, and which means it's sucking down your entire address book, including any confidential contact information you may have.
Right.
And that's a bit annoying when I'm being careful, but somebody who's got my confidential contact information isn't, and that's frustrating. So that's a good one.
Absolutely.
Yep.
And that's all the couple levels deep stuff, because if you have that person's email and phone number and Facebook, now this company that they didn't have any association with has that person's connection information, possibly. So I would say another thing, if you want to see how dependent you are on this autofill stuff, just private browse for a little while. And it's going to show you a lot of places that you are getting lax in your security. But generally speaking, I recommend that everybody use your private browsing feature as much as you possibly can.
That's sometimes called incognito mode or that sort of thing. Yeah,
exactly.
Interesting, yes. Because that essentially, it blocks cookies. What does it do? It blocks cookies, blocks history?
Yeah, and it does a couple of other little things. I know that in some of the browsers, it will give you a VPN. It won't, any of that autofill information that is available on a normal basis, it will not be available in the incognito mode. And that's important. You need to know where you are being lax and just kind of letting the internet take care of you.
Right.
because that, again, if it's easy for you, you are the commodity that's being bought and sold.
All right. That's excellent. And if you have any tips, any information that you want to share, or any questions about this that we could perhaps explore some more, please feel free to let us know. Send us an email to technology@sqpn.com. We'd love to hear from you. Before we get into our picks of the week, I do have a tip. I had a little tech problem myself this weekend. I used Plex on my as my media center for my TV. Plex is software that runs on a server, and I can create a library of TV shows or movies or even home movies, that sort of stuff that I can put on there and that I can watch on, from my Plex media center. Well, I have that, and I have it on my network attached storage. The brand I use is Synology, and all of a sudden I stopped seeing all of my content, and I was pulling my hair out trying to figure out why. Why can't I? Where did the shows are there? The movies are there, on my Plex machine. Why am I not seeing them in the software? Well, it turns out that when in the most recent version of Plex, they changed it so that the Plex user in the server software, they lowered its level of permissions for what it could see, and so it could no longer read it had no longer permission to read the libraries where I was storing my files. And so as soon as I figured that out, I had to go into the server, and it'll be different on what different servers that you use, and find the list of users, the system users, and one of them was called Plex, and I said, you let it read and write the library folders, and I had to find for the library folders. And once I did that, everything was back to normal. But it was really annoying before that, before I figured that out. And what annoyed me the most was that Plex had never sent out an email when they changed this to the users or any type of information. I had to go digging around quite deep in their website before I found it, and it kind of stumbled on it. So I wanted to get that information out there, pass it along to people if you encounter people having this problem. All right, so that was my tip of the week. So let's go to our picks of the week. Jack, let's go with you first. What's your pick of the week?
All right, so I figure if tech companies are going to be tracking us and harvesting all our information, we might as well make some money off of it. So my recommendations are Google Play Rewards. As far as I know, it's only available for Android. And basically what it is they'll send you surveys based on demographics you fill in on the app, and it gives you like 10 cents, 25 cents, sometimes up to a couple dollars. And it's in Google Play credit, so you can use it for music and movies and games in the Android store. And also SurveyMonkey Rewards, which is available on iOS and on Android. And that gives you money that can be redeemed for Amazon credit. And you can redeem it in $5 increments. So every $5 you get, you can cash out for an Amazon gift card. And it's not a lot of money, but it's a couple dollars here and there.
Excellent. Yeah, I've seen a few things like that before. Yeah, if you're gonna give your data is your commodity, you should be able to make money off of it.
Right.
I will say that Google Rewards does not sound like much, but I have done 206 surveys, and I have made a total of $50 off of those 206 surveys.
Wow.
Yeah, I've made over $100 in the 6 years I've used it.
I mean, it's over 6 years. That's not a lot of money, but it's $100.
Yeah, it's a movie rental here and there for free.
That's pretty good. That's a interesting idea. All right, that's a good pick. And how about you, Thomas? What's your pick of the week?
So mine's not as much of a single tech pick, but I just wanted to highlight the fact that a lot of people don't realize that their local library has access to a huge amount of electronic resources. So if you haven't yet, go check your library, call your librarian, check their website, something like that, to see what you have access to with your library card. Because I know for me personally, it started kind of by looking for professional papers. We have access to some professional repositories for papers online. I found out that we have Hoopla. My wife is really into the library. We have access to Hoopla and Overdrive, which are both electronic resources that you can download music. You can download, you check it out just like the library, but you check it out onto your phone. So you can download an album, and it gives you recommendations for other albums that are similar. Really, really great system. But I also have access to lynda.com, unlimited access to lynda.com through my library. I have Mango Languages is another one that I get through my library. So use your library resources.
Interesting. Very good. I knew about Overdrive and Hoopla, and Libby's another new one. And you can sometimes get audiobooks. My library doesn't have the Big Finish Doctor Who audiobooks, which is really sad. I really was hoping they would. But the lynda.com one, I've used Lynda to learn various things over the years, and it can be expensive, but it's really, if you can get it for free, that's really awesome. If my library doesn't have it, I'm going to start bugging them about it. So.
Yeah, exactly. That's the other thing is actually, if you don't have these things, go to your library and tell them, hey, we should have these things.
Yeah, they might not even have thought of anybody in your town would want it. So that's good. Awesome. That's a good one. So mine is a new game. I'm going to go with a game this time and have some fun. Harry Potter Wizards Unite. It's the latest game from Niantic, the people who brought you Pokemon Go, the last huge people going nuts over a game craze from a couple years ago. Well, they took that and they married it to Harry Potter, and now this summer people are going to be insane. Let me just put it that way.
Oh yeah.
And so I just started it today. The gameplay is very similar. One of the things I like about Niantic is they've been around a while. This is, I think, their third major augmented reality game, and every time they do a new one, they have a good track record of making it better, a better experience. Pokemon Go is better than the one that came before. Oh, I can never remember the name of it.
Ingress.
That's right. Very good. And,
which I'll tell you a story about that in just a minute, but you go ahead.
Okay. So Pokemon Go is better than Ingress, and Harry Potter is going to be better than the Pokemon Go. So check it out, download it. This stuff this in-game stuff you can buy, but you don't have to buy it. If you just want to have fun, it will suck up your battery, so be prepared for that. And take a space on your phone. So it doesn't have to, but it can if you let it. So just be aware of those. And as they remind you, actually, they do a good job of reminding you over and over again. Be safe when using it, because you get your head in your phone while you're walking around outside. But also, and don't trespass on people's property.
And watch out for Death Eaters.
Yeah, and watch out for the Death Eaters. But have some fun with it. So I'm looking forward to having some fun. I'm going to be doing some travel over the summer, and so going to well-known places is always a big part of it. Like, so if you go to a landmark or a park or a historical marker or something like that, that's often a place where some of the game can be played. So and it's a social game. You're out there and you encounter other people playing it, and you talk to them and you get to know people. It was an evangelization opportunity for a lot of people. I remember Father Andrew, who's also on the show with us some weeks, he was talking about how he was playing Pokemon Go with some folks very, very recently, and got to talking about being a priest, and it was an evangelization opportunity. So, well, Thomas, what was your story?
Okay, so I love Niantic because they are the best cloud sourcing company I've ever seen. Ingress, if you look at the way that these programs have kind of fallen along, Ingress was all about mapping locations. Like, you had to go out, find a location that was recognizable, take a picture of it, send it in, and it would be they would then check it and make sure that it was viable as a monument that people could use to congregate at in the game. It was part of the game's concept. They used those landmarks then to make Pokemon Go work. And it was just absolutely brilliant scheme to try it, because you otherwise you'd have to go out there and check all of these things out, make sure that all the pictures were there, make sure that all the locations actually existed, get the GPS data. Nope, they just said, here, go do it. People did.
Wow, that's awesome. Yes, and so they were able to crowdsource the stuff they would have otherwise had to pay a lot of money to get. That's pretty good.
Exactly.
So folks, if you're playing Harry Potter Wizards Unite and you're having fun with it, let me know what you think of the game. Our friends out in New Zealand got to play in the beta period. There was a period of several months earlier this year that they had it for everyone else in the world. So they're way ahead of the rest of us in the game. So we'll have to do some catching up to do. So all right. So I think that'll do it for us. So before we close out, we want to take a moment to thank our patrons who make it possible for us to create the Secrets of Technology, including Les R, Paul L, Terry M, Yvonne R, and Dennis S. Their generous donations at sqpn.com/give make it possible for us to create the Secrets of Technology and all the shows at StarQuest, including a new show I want to tell you about called American Catholic History. It's a show by Tom and Noel Crow, a couple, and they talk about, in about 10 minutes a week, you're going to get a great story about Catholics, some Catholic Americans who, through their faith, have contributed in some way to our country or to our faith. And very often there'll be stories that you've never heard of before. So you will hear about some of the well-known people, St. Elizabeth Ann Seton, that sort of thing. But very often it's going to be things that you hadn't heard before. Very interesting stories, very interesting people and events. So check that out. That's at sqpn.com/history. And if you want to help us bring even more new podcasts and continue to bring you these podcasts, you can join all of our patrons at sqpn.com/give. So what do you think of our discussion? Do you have some feedback for us on the 911 question and on the browser tracking issues? Let us know by going to sqpn.com/technology or the SQPN Facebook page, which is facebook.com/StarQuestMedia, and leave us some feedback or send an email to, like I said, technology@sqpn.com. And you can find all of the links from our discussion and our picks of the week on our show notes at sqpn.com. So until next time, Jack Barazzini, thank you for joining me and sharing the secrets of technology.
Thanks, Tom.
Thomas Senherho, thank you as well.
It was great to be here.
And once again, I'm Dom Bettinelli. Thank you for listening to the Secrets of Technology on StarQuest.